A second Kira puts Light Yagami in a vulnerable position. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today I want to talk about some manga that I read. I am back on that manga grind. And today's manga is all about a notebook where if you put someone's name in it, they die, and also about relationships. I am referring to Deathnote Volume 4 by Tsugumi Ohba and art by Takeshi Obata, which was published around 2003-2004. I've talked about Tsugumi Ohba before on this channel, so I don't need to go into that great of detail. Just noting that that's not his real name, and he's written a number of different series, but Deathnote is probably his most notable, and it's very well regarded and has been turned into an anime and has had a couple of movie adaptations of varying quality, the one on Netflix being particularly horrendous, but also kind of funny as well. Funny in a this is really bad kind of way. And yeah, I'm enjoying the series so far, and I think Volume 4 is particularly good. A real sort of tense cat and mouse game, as I've been talking about. And without further ado, let's talk about Volume 4. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Volume 4, once again, focuses on Light and L as they try to figure out each other's sort of secrets. Light wants to know L's real name, and L wants to know if Light is Kira, but Light is not giving him any help there. And L invites Light to serve on the Kira case squad. He still suspects that L still suspects that Light is Kira, and Light's father, who's also on the case squad, doesn't really like that Light is under investigation, but he doesn't really do anything to stop it as well. And meanwhile, Misa is now the second Kira. She's announced herself. She has her own Shinigami named Rem that she's using, and she also has Shinigami eyes, meaning that she's given up a fraction of her life in an effort to be able to kill people without knowing their name, because with Shinigami eyes, she knows everyone's name. L tasked Light with creating a Kira video in order to trick the second Kira into revealing more about themselves. And Light does this, and Misa ends up responding, and in her response she talks about Shinigami and other sorts of things that Light doesn't want the Kira case squad to know about. And L is kind of taken aback because he wonders, like, are we supposed to believe that Shinigami are real? And Light is Light is sort of angry. He knows that he's going to have to do something about the second Kira, or else she'll just give away all the secrets. L makes plans to track down both Kiras, using one against the other, and Misa reveals her connection to the Shinigami, that her Shinigami being in love with her, even though if a Shinigami prolongs a human's life, that runs the risk of turning that Shinigami into dust and killing them. But also Misa reveals that the Kira, or Light, killed the burglar, the robber, who killed her parents. And so she feels a strong connection to him because of that. Misa ends up sharing part of her diary, which Light deduces that she wants him to go to Aoyama so they can meet, and Light in fact does go to Aoyama, and it's there that Misa sees Light without him knowing, because she can see his name but not his death, how long he has left to live, and that is because that means that he's Kira. He has a death note, and so she manages to track him down. L becomes more suspicious because Kira kind of reveals that in a future note to the police, and that he suspects like Light must have talked to her while he was in Aoyama. Meanwhile, Misa realizes where Light lives and visits him at his home, and reveals that she is the second Kira, and wants to be in a relationship with Light. But Light notes that if they're together, L will suspect they have to sort of remain apart. But he agrees to be in somewhat of a relationship, although they have to see other people at the same time. And Light even makes plans to kill Misa even after agreeing to this. So he's clearly he's not well. He's becoming quite a monster here. Misa, Light doesn't want anyone to know that he's dating Misa, and they decide that they're going to use Rem, the other Shinigami, and to potentially kill L once they find out who he is. But Light also still suspects that Light is Kira at this point, and even tells Light's father that if I die in the next few days, you have to suspect your son. It's probably him that did it in some form or way. At one point, despite his misgivings, L shows up to the college campus where Light is again, and it's there that Misa shows up as well. Misa meets Ryugi, which is the name that L's going by, and she realizes that he's been lying about her name. And after Misa leaves, Light tries to call Misa in order to find out what L's true name is, but it turns out that L stole Misa's phone, this only leads L to suspect even more, and he reveals at this point that he just had Misa arrested because there were traces of her own clothing fibers that were attached to some videos that she sent to the news stations. Misa is arrested. They try to interrogate her. Again, Light is heavily suspected here, but there's no proof that he might be the other Kira. And Misa says to her Shinigami that she wants to die, but rather than kill her, they just make her give up the Deathnote, which erases her memory, but they manage to make it so that she still remembers that Light is her boyfriend. This upsets L, who doesn't really know what's going on because she knew she was arrested for stealing the or she was arrested for being the Kira, one of the Kiras, but now she doesn't really know why she was arrested, and so Elle just wonders what's going on there. So Misa has lost her memories there, and Light realizes that there's only one thing that he can really do. He buries his Deathnote in the woods, but still says it's his. He's going to come back for it, but he sets like a sort of parameter that if he says I give it up, that says to his Shinigami that he's giving it up and he can lose his memories there. But at this point he goes to L and confesses that he must be Kira, but he confesses in a way that suggests that he's being sort of controlled, or like he might be doing this in his sleep, because he believes that certain people should be punished, and so he's confessing to maybe doing this in his sleep. And the only way to know for sure if he's doing this is to investigate him, which L realizes is quite clever because it gives him an out if the killing stopped, then that obviously must mean that he was doing it in his sleep or something like that. Light essentially has turned himself in here, and that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there is quite a bit worth talking about with Volume 4 of Deathnote. This is a pretty good entry, a really good entry. I think it really stands out because the other 3 entries were pretty solid, but I think Ohba manages to ratchet up the tension here in a way that makes a very compelling narrative, and I think the addition of a second Kira in Misa makes this even more interesting because it puts Light in a more vulnerable position, which I'll talk about in a few moments. But the main theme, the main idea that Ohba is touching upon here is the cat and mouse game. Once again, I've been talking about through this series. Basically, like Light and L want to find out who Kira and Light wants to know who L is, and so they're working against each other to sort of find this information, and they're trying to outwit one another. But here it seems like L has the advantage in the cat and mouse game. L is constantly watching Light, which makes Light's movements very difficult. It makes it harder for him to sort of place the blame on other people, and it makes it difficult for him to find out L's real name, because if he suspects Light, he's never going to reveal his true name. There are traps set everywhere, even when he asks for Light's help, that's just another trap to just get him closer. Keep your enemies close keep your friends close and your enemies closer, as they say. And then one of the things he even does is he steals Misa's cell phone, and when Light calls Misa after them having met L, L's like, yeah, this definitely throws things, throws my suspicions in the air. I can't trust Light more than I can throw him, and Light's very angry about that, but he doesn't reveal anything, especially when L says, I arrested your girlfriend here, and because Light knows that if she reveals who he is, the game is over. He's gonna go to jail, and so Light's only chance is really to try to trick L, but the second Kira makes things difficult. It kind of puts him into a corner where he's not able to do any of the normal tricks that he might be able to do, and as time goes on, because Misa keeps making so many mistakes, and because Light keeps making so many mistakes, because again, the second Kira is really throwing things out of his sense of normalcy, forcing him to try to come up with different solutions. He's now really stuck in a corner, and L's not really falling for any of the traps that he's trying to set. And I think it's really interesting is that the ultimate strategy to winning this cat and mouse game, at least in Light's eyes, is to confess, but to confess in a way that gives some credibility to him still. To say, oh, I didn't do it, it's my subconscious when I go to bed, I'm the one who's somehow making all of these killings happen. And because it's a very interesting strategy, because once he gets arrested, once he is being interrogated, he's not going to be able to fully confess. He's not gonna he's not gonna be able to. They're not gonna be able to really prove it's him. Sure, the killings will stop, but they don't know about the Deathnote. And if he gives up the Deathnote, his memory gets wiped. So he's not gonna have any memory of having the Deathnote in the first place. So his strategy seems pretty sound, but I do wonder how he's going to solve any problems that he might have without the Deathnote going forward. Punishment has also been a consistent theme through this series. Both Light and Misa want to punish the wicked. They believe that having the book means that they have the power to punish those that are guilty, that are doing harm to society. And Misa even seems thankful for Kira, because of he killed someone who wronged her family. Allow me to read you an interesting quote from this. My parents were killed a year ago by a burglar in front of my eyes. I couldn't forgive the killer. I wanted to kill him myself, but that would be wrong. I didn't know what to do. His trial was delayed and delayed. Some said he might even get off. And then Kira punished him. Kira is like a savior to me. And that's a pretty interesting quote, because it highlights Misa's connection to Kira, why she might be in love with him, because the justice system didn't do anything about the person who murdered her family. But Kira did. Kira punished someone that she felt was wicked in her eyes, and so you can see why there would be a connection, and why she would think that there was a sort of divine nature to being the one with the Deathnote. It's also interesting because it's all an illusion. They aren't really doing anything by a divine right. They just have a fancy book. They weren't given this power by anyone. They have no right to kill these people. They're dishing out justice that they have no right to fully give. If you can kill anyone that you want, and you're going by your own standards. Who's to say those standards are actually right? Who's to say those standards are actually noble? I've talked about that before. Essentially, who gave them the power? But as Misa notes, like Light calls her out and says, "You killed those police officers in the previous volume," and Misa says there are acceptable sacrifices. But again, like how does she determine that there are acceptable sacrifices? And how many acceptable sacrifices can there be? Like, could you kill 100 people in order to get to one? Could you, like, who are you allowed to kill in that capacity? And who says that you get to kill those people, and what makes it right to kill that one person who might be innocent? In my view, like, if you kill even one innocent person in order to kill, like, even one bad person, that's too many. There are no acceptable parameters for, like casualties in war, like bystander casualties or anything like that. Misa just simply has power and believes that any amount of sacrifices are good as long as she's able to dish out this divine justice that she thinks that she has a right to give out. But it's really interesting because Light kind of agrees with her, but at the same time, like this woman that is proclaiming her love for him, who's saying like, I believe in what you're doing is right. He's already making plans to kill her. Like he's already trying to kill her off so that she doesn't like lead the police to him. He's coming off as even more of a psychopath and showing why someone like him shouldn't have the death note, because he's just making plans to kill anyone. It's also interesting because when Elle looks at Light and says, I hope you're not the Kira because you become a friend to me. Like I believe Elle when he says that, but Light is like, oh yeah, I believe you're a friend too. And also in his mind, he's like, I'm going to kill you. And like, what kind of person does that to someone who just said that you were a friend? It makes Light seem like a huge monster. And again, like someone like Light should not have this kind of power. Despite all of this power that he seems to have, Tsugumi Ohba does a really good job of portraying Light as vulnerable in this chapter, in this volume. Light is backed into a corner, as I've noted before. He's sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place because Elle knows enough that any sort of outward interaction with Misa is going to make him look guilty. Him going to Aoyama made him look guilty. Him sort of doing anything at all makes him look guilty because, of course, he is guilty, and Elle is slowly tightening the net around him. Misa is kind of forcing Light into a relationship that he doesn't want to be in, and it kind of appears that she's smarter than him, and it's sort of like, oh, you thought you were that great with a death note, but here's someone else with it, showing that you can be just as vulnerable as you have made everyone else. And he has to kind of watch his steps because of that, because now he can not only anger Elle, but he's also going to anger Misa if he does the wrong thing. And again, Elle's traps are not making this any easier. It seems like he's just walking on a minefield, Light, and any step that he takes is going to be the wrong one. So I do have to credit Ohba for showing a more vulnerable protagonist here. Light has sort of been walking on water throughout the series so far, but now he's finally in a position where he kind of has to just give himself up, but in a way that allows him to be seen as innocent maybe later. Is that fully going to work out? We'll have to see. But ultimately, I do think that Ohba does a really good job of building up the tension in this volume and making it a very compelling read. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Deathnote Volume 4 by Tsugumi Ohba. Pretty solid entry into the series. Definitely a lot of fun to read. I'm wondering where it's going to go next now that Light has confessed. How is he going to get out of this, and how is he going to try to outsmart Elle in this type of situation? It seems very difficult, but I think Tsugumi Ohba is going to find a way to do it, and I hope it's a very clever kind of way, as we've seen in the series so far. If you have any thoughts on this series, let me know in the comments below. I definitely recommend that you seek this out, especially starting with Volume 1. It's definitely a lot of fun to read and whatnot. But yeah, definitely comment if you have any thoughts. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this author or this series if they don't already know. Otherwise, don't forget to, well, I already talked about that. But otherwise, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and forced relationship travels. That sounds kind of weird. Hopefully not. Farewell.